The first direct encounter with the Antarctic was simply an invitation to a location in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, halfway between the Antarctic and Europe. Every nation in Europe was invited to send 5 vessels of any type, with the Antarctic stating that they would only bring 10. Naturally, every nation in Europe sent half of its fleet, along with low-flying zeppelins and airplanes to scope out the enemy. The Antarctic was the only nation to obey the terms. As a side note, the Antarctic had a very small number of naval vessels. Naturally, the pompous European nations also assumed this, and in this rarest of cases, were correct. The Navy was the weakest aspect of the Antarctic war machine, and yet that didn't matter much, did it? But the lackluster number of naval vessels was one of the reasons the Antarctic could only send 10 vessels. They could have sent more, but it would have left their waters significantly less well defended, and, of course, they knew they didn't need more than 10 vessels. An additional rule was that each nation must send an emissary on their respective flagship for the purposes of allowing a swift negotiation to ensure everyone could unite to destroy the threat lurking below them, deep within the ocean. The original communications made by the Antarctic were viewed as extremely impertinent by the European powers, and so they were the ones who fired first. Their shots did very little to the 3 Antarctic capital ships which had been sighted at that time. The 3 Antarctic capital ships returned fire, striking 3 vessels, sending each one hit to the depths within minutes, fire and oil being the last thing seen of them. That was merely with the first volley. Further volleys were primarily intended for disorienting the other vessels, each shell not detonating into a fireball or blast, but instead smoke and radar jamming chaff. This decimation of perception allowed the Antarctic to enact 3 types of attacks on 3 vessels. The first was effectively what you get when you make a Call of Duty riot shield 4 times the width and about a foot taller, put it on gasoline-driven tracks, and put a lot of flap-covered holes for firing machine guns, flamethrowers, and pistols through. Then send 5 soldiers in with each shield while cutting holes into the deck, walls, etc., and additionally filling the entire vessel with non-lethal gas. These soldiers were inserted onto the deck of the German flagship via quadcopters hidden within the smoke. Few shots were fired at the quadcopters, but their armor proved more than adequate in spite of their still being aircraft. We'll get into the insanity of the Antarctic aircraft later on. The second ship was boarded by soldiers wearing powered armor. They too were deployed by quadcopters, though they were deployed far faster. In essence, they just walked through the hulls of the ship, shooting anyone who fired at them, cutting holes in whatever they needed to cut through. The only limitation to their reaching the bridge was the slowness of the hydraulics driving their armor. This vessel was the French flagship. The third ship was infiltrated by an exotic species of the Antarctic nation, Veer. They are very interesting creatures, but I will get into them later. They had the captain subdued and pleading for his life when the rest of that attack force arrived. In essence, the Antarctic captured each flagship and forced their admirals to surrender and order all other vessels in the fleet to do so as well. And remember, thumbs up means to shove it up your ass, so please click the quote-unquote like button whether you like this or not, and subscribe with the bell icon